So let's go ahead and get started. Assessment and mitigating. We're going to talk about vulnerability attacks. We'll be using some software on Thursday. You'll be getting a handout and some Linux distros for penetration testing. So we're going to look at what vulnerability testing is, an assessment, and some of the tools that are available. So when you're doing vulnerability assessment on a network, you're basically systematically approaching your network to see if there are any holes in it on purpose, and so to stop from attackers hitting your network or block them hitting your network. Also, forces of nature would be another reason, and any potential entity that could come and hit your network. Could be a surge protection or a surge from electric, lightning, flood. Aspects of vulnerability testing: you got to identify your assets, your threat, your vulnerability appraisal, risk assessment, and risk mitigation. So on the assessment of identification, you're basically putting a dollar value to all the products you have, all the computers, servers, switches, things like that, mobile devices, laptops. And then people, data, hardware, software, physical assets are all common assets. Determine relative value. You can use a program I'll mention called Spiceworks. Some of you might have heard of that, some of you maybe haven't. It's a free program you can install on any client computer. And if you Google that, you can download it for free, and it will inventory your network within 24 hours. And then you can start attaching to an inventory PDFs, assessment values, things of that nature. It also has built into Spiceworks a built-in help desk ticket system, and probably about 400,000 IT folks from around the world are connected to it as well. So if you have a printer problem, you can put the code that the printer's giving you, and more than likely somebody's already had that solution. So it's a great tool. I've used it for a couple of years. We use it here on campus. When you set it up, you just give everybody an email address they can send if they have an issue, and it'll create a ticket and start the ball rolling with somebody to get on that ticket to fix an issue. With assessment, it's nice because again, it'll go through and it'll go through like a spider on your network and try to find out all the connected devices from switches, laptops, desktop servers, and then you can attach to each item documents. So you can attach PDFs like warranties and stuff like that, so it's kind of cool. So threat evaluation is basically listing potential threats. Could be nature, with flood, fire, tornado. Could be theft. Could be multiple different types of evaluation of threats that could come. Threat modeling is basically where you set up a test environment to understand how a attack could occur. So it could be in both natural disaster, could both be in an attack on your network from hackers. The goal on this, though, is to understand attackers and their methods. Really, it's role playing. So really, there's companies that get paid big bucks, by the way, to come in and do assessment. I've been through a number of them, and you make a lot of money just doing assessments for companies. And an example is there's a company that will send emails to people in your organization, and you'll get a report at the end of the month to see how folks are with clicking on emails, and do they follow the instructions on any email. And you'll get a health report of that, and then you can go back and train your people. Here's a report we had. It doesn't name names. It just says, here's our report. Here's what you need to learn. So they kind of tweak the learning for each organization. Every organization is different, and the people you normally think wouldn't read an email and follow the steps are the ones that normally do. Okay? In my experience. And so, yeah, the ones that you normally would think, oh, Joe's not going to click on that, and he's the first one to click on it. Okay? And followed every single step it said in the email. got his password, got, you know, where he lives, his schedule, the whole thing, bank account, credit cards, whatever. Anyway, attack tree is basically a visual representation of a threat attack, and it's an inverted tree structure. You'll see in a second. So here's a category of threats. You've heard of all these, and maybe it's happened to you at work or home. Natural disasters, fire, flood, earthquake, compromise of intellectual property, software pirated, big fines in that, by the way. There are companies that will give surprise visits to big companies and small to see if they're within their software licensing, and can fine companies quite large. Local company in town I won't mention was fined about $450,000 2 years ago because they wouldn't purchase full version of Microsoft, which is dirt cheap for companies, really, if you think about it. And it's not like this company was a poor company at all. But they wouldn't approve it, so they had employees install too many copies of, you know, it was on an image on a computer, so they just basically put that image everywhere, and then they didn't have enough licenses, so they were fined. And what's really weird about that one, or stupid, I think, whatever you want to look at it, they had a time frame to make it right, like 2 months, because they'll usually come in and warn you and say, okay, you're out of specs, and here's the number. You have 2 months to fix it or get rid of the software, right? Buy the license. They didn't do anything. Just paid the fine. Whatever. Hardware failure or espionage, spy steals production schedule, extortion, mail clerk is blackmailed and intercepting letters, hardware failure or errors, firewall blocks all network traffic, human error, employee drops laptop in parking lot, sabotage or vandalism, attacker implants worm that erases files, software attacks, virus worm denial of service, we could say ransomware, maybe throw that one in there as well, software failure, errors, bugs, technical obsolescence, program does not function under new operating system. That happened a lot in the last few years. Theft, desktop system is stolen from unlocked room, and utility interruption, electrical power is cut off. And these are, you know, common threats. So here's the inverted tree. The root of this would be the top. So like a tree, normally at the bottom, the root's the top, meaning the fruit of this theft or of this value item would be a car stereo. So you'll notice different levels. Starting with level 4, threaten attendant, blackmail attendant, bribe attendant. Level 3, make a copy of the key or grab a purse. Level 2, carjack the car, steal a key, or break glass. All, regardless of what level, if somebody wants to get something bad enough and waits long enough and, you know, does their homework, more than likely they can steal a car stereo eventually, if that's their goal. And it's not that people can't do it, even with the greatest of security system, is how long will it take? How many levels are they gonna have to go through? It should be difficult to do, shouldn't be easy. Attack tree for breaking and integrating system. Level 3 is look under mouse pad for password, watch over shoulder of the teacher, exploit software security hole. Level 2, use unattended computer when the teacher walks out of the room, defeat security, steal password, and then access the student grade system. Can anybody think of a movie, classic movie, starts with an F, that changes his grades? One of the first things he does. Remember? No? Anybody remember Ferris Bueller? Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Anyway. Vulnerability assessment. Determine weak passwords or current weaknesses, not passwords, could be passwords, but any weakness. Gives us, like an example I gave you earlier, of the company that comes in and just sends emails out for a month and sees the strength and weaknesses of your company. Every asset should be viewed in light of each threat, including people, not just your hardware, software, and data, but people as well. Risk assessment, determine damage resulting from attack, assess likelihood that it's risk organization. Now, if you've ever managed anything or you own a home, you've already done some of this already because you have to have insurance, right? So you do some type of risk assessment where you pay so much money on what would be covered if something happened, and then you just hope and pray whatever you don't pay for doesn't happen, right? we all have to do that. So, when we first buy a new car, we have full coverage, meaning everything's, front bumper to bumper. We have to have that. Then maybe when we pay for the car, we dump it, down to liability because we don't care if it gets wrecked. We're not going to, not that we don't care, but we're not going to pay full coverage, all that premium for that. Same thing with the IT department, same thing with stores. They're going to do a vulnerability assessment, risk assessment all the time on a yearly basis. So on vulnerability impact, and this could be, it gives unique examples, but it could be any type of organization. This is particular to IT. So one of the first is no impact. The vulnerability has no impact on the organization. Somebody steals a mouse. If somebody steals a mouse and it has an impact on your organization, you might want to close the doors. I'm just thinking. Small impact. Small vulnerabilities will produce limited periods of inconvenience. So example, a specific brand or type of hard disk drive that fails might require that spare hard drives be available and the devices with those drives be periodically tested. Significant impact. A vulnerability that results in the loss of employee productivity due to downtime, capital outlay to alleviate should be considered significant. Malware is injected in the network that is classified as significant vulnerability. And there has been some in the past that literally has cost millions of dollars that have hit businesses before. Major impact, major vulnerabilities of those that have considered negative impact to revenue. The theft of the latest product research and development data through backdoor could be considered a major vulnerability. We could also say through, like we've learned so far, through social engineering. Somebody goes out for dinner or for drinks or whatever, and through the discussion they get somebody to spill the beans, or they steal something from somebody's briefcase or purse while they're going to the bathroom or something, whatever. Catastrophic. Vulnerabilities ranked as catastrophic events. Organizations cease functioning and seriously cripples. Tornado hits the building, and all the company's data could be catastrophic. We're celebrating or remembering 9/11, not really celebrating, but I guess in some cases you would say celebrating those who survived and the heroes that save folks. But we're remembering those folks today of that catastrophe of the two Twin Towers and that plane and that whole day. We all remember probably where we were at that time. And that's it was a catastrophe. We're still remembering it today, 17 years later, still fresh in our mind. If you remember, I was teaching high school at the time, and we had, I think it was called News One or Focus One. I can't remember. Whatever that news station is they had for kids. You remember that in high school. You had the news station in your homeroom class, and that's about the time it came on. And you guys were probably all either at home or grade school or whatever during that time. And that would be considered catastrophic. So vulnerability assessment was single loss. Continuing on, single SLE, single loss expectancy. Expecting monetary loss each time a risk occurs. Calculated by multiplying the asset by the exposure. Percentage of asset likely to be destroyed by a particular risk. Single loss expectancy could be, they do this with theft, I know, like at retail. It's another term for it, but basically it's over a year's time how much they are expected to walk out the door without people paying, like Walmart or JCPenney or whatever. And they don't buy insurance for that. They just expect it. They eat it, is what they call it, is what it's called. It's going to happen, right? As much as they try to get it not to happen, it's going to happen. Annual loss, that's what it is, ALE, annual loss expectancy. Over one period of time, like a year, where how much products walking out the door without being paid for? How much are we going to lose with customers getting mad and breaking something or whatever, annual loss, or stealing something. And then estimating probability of vulnerability would actually occur. Then you've got risk mitigation, determining what to do about a risk, how much risk can be tolerated, options for dealing with risk, and there's 3 options. You can diminish it, transfer it like insurance, or just accept it or eat it. Just say, we're not going to do anything about it. We just accept it. We have $1 million you're going to walk out the door every year with theft, or say $700,000 or whatever. They might decide they're not going to pay insurance on that. They're just going to accept it. It's cheaper maybe to accept it. So the steps of identifying risk are these. First is step 1, or the top, is basically this asset identification, where you inventory assets, determine value, threat, categorize those threats, design an attack tree. Appraisal is what weaknesses you have, and use some type of assessment tool, like we'll use on Thursday. And then risk assessment, estimate impact of vulnerability, calculate loss, whether it be one time or yearly. And then mitigation, are you going to diminish it, or transfer it, or accept it? So there's a lot of tools out there. Microsoft has one called Microsoft Baseline, where it'll run it on your network, and if you're an admin, you can scan all your computers, and it'll come back with a report of what software is out of date, how many weak passwords do you have, stuff like that. Okay? And it's just a standard baseline that it'll come back with. Doesn't really change anything, it just gives you a report. Now, there are softwares you can run, like Spiceworks will actually run baselines, but it'll also give you the ability to update individual machines once that report's been published out. You can compare present to baseline, like did everybody get their updates? Is everybody's antivirus updated? If not, what percentage aren't? Does all the companies have antivirus? All the computers have antivirus? Note, evaluate, and address whatever differences there might be in a baseline report. And then application development techniques. You can minimize vulnerabilities during software development. And then challenges to the approach is basically software application size and complexity, lack of security specifications, future attack techniques unknown. So in software development, which part of my world and my day is constantly reviewing design and requirements for applications you work on or that are released, design reviews, code review, looking if there's any holes in the code or whatever, bugs, fixing them, creating and distributing updates as necessary for your app if you have any security updates. And so the life cycle here of a development process, you have on the left the architecture person or people or a group that comes up with the guidelines. They're not really programmers. They can be, but in bigger firms they're not. And then you have the next is the design specs and breaking down those functions. And then the middle part there is the actual development and testing of the software. And then signing off, saying everything's good, and releasing it, and then periodically doing updates and support. So assessment tools, I've already mentioned one, Microsoft Baseline. One mentioned here is IP addresses. Should they be unique on everybody on a computer, on a network? Yeah, we know that, right? It should be. Are they all the time? No, not all the time. You'll find anomalies maybe where there's a duplicate for whatever reason. And it's not really anything to do with hacking, it just happens sometimes. Especially if it's on different subnets or something. So the TCP/IP communication in this assessment tool involves gathering all the IP addresses, all the port numbers that are open, port numbers that are closed, things like that. It'll give a kickback of all well-known port numbers like 25, 43, 443, 80, 110, all the popular ports plus all the ones that are reserved I mentioned just now, port 25, And then register port numbers for those applications not widely used. And then dynamic and private port numbers available for unique applications to use. So here's some port numbers you probably heard of. 20 and 21 is FTP or secure FTP. 22 is secure socket or secure shell. Telnet 23, TFTP, trivial file transfer protocol 69, hypertext transfer protocol port 80. Everybody should know that's what you browse your web with is port 80. NetBIOS 139. HTTPS for secure websites 443. And FTP secure FTPS 989 or 990. And these can be manipulated too, by the way, and be something different. These are just the default port numbers that are given for these protocols. You can override them, by the way, which is one security thing you can do on your network, is you can transfer or in an application say, I don't want to use 21 for FTP. I want to use, 53 or something. I don't know, just pick one up. You're going to be less likely to attack because hackers are going to use the default, which is 21. We're not going to waste time trying to figure out if they're just going to think you don't have it. It's not on your system. So it's no big deal. But like we found out, or not in here, but we did Spiceworks. Spiceworks basically allows you to, not Spiceworks, brain dead. Port scanner. Port scanners allow you to see all the ports that are open, and it tells you the protocol of those ports. Wireshark is what I was thinking of. Assessment tools going on with that. Knowledge of what ports should be open or not. It can be used by an attacker to target specific services. Port scanner software. Searches the system for port vulnerabilities and gives you a feedback of open, closed, and blocked ports. Microsoft Baseline does that for you. It'll give you a report of all the ports that are open, closed, and blocked. Another tool here is Radman, remote control software for advanced port scanner. You put in there the IP range, and then you run it, and it goes by each computer there, and you can expand out each one. It'll tell you real nice detail of each computer. And let's say you're not supposed to have port 21 open and some of them do, then you can go back and fix those that are. Port scanning will look for things like attempts to connect every available port. If port's open, the operating system completes a TCP handshake. Port scanner then connects. Then they have SYN scanning that looks for the target, whether it's acknowledged or not in the handshake, and then finish scanning, which is the finish of the handshake. Stealth scans is where basically you try to fool a computer network that you're something else than you are, like a man-in-the-middle attack or something. And then Christmas tree port scan is a packet with every option set for whatever protocol is in use. And when used for scanning, the header file of the TCP of a Christmas tree packet has flags of finished, urgent, and push, all set to on. And by observing how the host responds, assumptions can be made about the operating system or the network that you're on. Part of penetration testing, getting ready to go into that. Protocol analyzers looks at all your packets and sniffs throughout the network your traffic at all times to see what's going on. And all your computers have them in here, and you can download multiple different packet sniffers that are totally free to download. And within seconds, you can determine the IP range of a network. You can determine the server of the network. Common uses for protocol analyzers is troubleshooting on network traffic, or somebody's peaking in traffic with downloads. You can find that out as well. Here's one called Ether Detect. which Wireshark does a lot of this one. It's a little fancier than this one. It basically just gives you, like Wireshark, starting with the 0 on the left and keeps going down and telling you, okay, 0 all the way to 5 there, and you'll notice the numbers are just increment each time it took to scan that. And it gives in here the IP port, the server port for that IP, which should mostly be the same on a network. It can be different for different items. And then if you click on each line, it breaks it apart at the bottom. And you can expand upon it with a port analyzer. So the attacker can use these to display in seconds, or use like an ARP command like we did last week to display the entire layout of a network within seconds without using a tool like this. So there's a lot of different commands you can use, but ARP's a popular one to use. Vulnerability scanners is most maintain a database categorizing vulnerabilities, and they give you a report back on updates that are out of date, weak passwords, open ports, closed ports, like that. Here's one called a QNIX, Web Vulnerability Scanner. It does a lot of cool things. It'll break down not just IP stuff, but it goes into different sniffing categories. Like it'll sniff HTTP, it'll sniff web services, configurations, goes down further into program updates and what programs are installed on each computer. So there's softwares you can run like this that within seconds a hacker can determine what software is on every computer, what IP address they have, what their MAC address is, what ports are open, what ports are closed. And it doesn't take a long time to figure that out with the right tools like this. You'll notice on this one it does give a nice vulnerability information, and it says here 533 alerts, 2 are high, 2 are medium, 251 were low, and 278 were just informational. Okay, and so informational is again going to be maybe a link's broke or something like that. So examples of vulnerability scanner capacity: it can alert when new systems have been added. If you have anybody have the new Xfinity Fi app on your network at home for Wi-Fi? Do you have it? Yeah. Because it'll do that. It'll tell you when a new device has been added to your. You can be anywhere, and it'll tell you on your phone, whatever weird IP address is accessed by. And it's usually some device you don't even realize that you're having in your house, maybe, like if you're like me.
Actually, today was the first day I saw it. I had a friend connect to it, and it showed me it.
Yeah, there you go. And so you can actually build your own. Like I brought a Linux device tonight. You can build your own scanners that does that and alerts you. But anyway, vulnerability scanners can alert when new systems have been added, a new IP, a new MAC address, whatever. It can detect when internal systems begin to port scan other systems and maintain a log of everything. It can track all client vulnerabilities and server vulnerabilities, and it can track which systems communicate with others internally. Problem with assessment tools: there's no standard for collecting, which I think is a good thing though. I like no standards in this area, because I like to be able to kind of do what I want to do and get what, different tools do different things, right? So if you're mechanically inclined with vehicles, different tools do different things. Same thing with assessment tools. I don't think that's a problem, really. I think it's a positive that there's no standard for collecting. Because I think if there was a standard, if there was a standard, hackers would know what that standard was and they would use it, right? Just like I never understood why banks or any entity tells you exactly how long a password should be and what the makeup of that password should be. Because the more rules you tell any system, the easier it is to hack. The more rules you have. So say if you have to have a caps and you have to have two numbers, and it has to be 10 characters long, and that's it. Okay, you just limited the pool of passwords. It's going to take a while, but still not as long as if I didn't know what those rules were. Open vulnerability and assessment language, OVAL, designed to promote open and publicly available security content, standardizes information. It's really a group of people that just wants to make rules, really. I don't know if it's ever really going to go anywhere. I know it does some good work, but I don't know personally if in assessment area, I like the fact that we can, in IT anyway, have multiple different tools for assessment, for collecting, for analyzing, for reporting. And we get to decide on which ones we want to use. And it can be homegrown, it can be bought off the shelf or whatever. And I think the less standardization in this area anyway is probably good. KBox is a management center, and you'll notice in here it gives, and this is the oval standard app for managing different types of vulnerabilities. And you'll notice in here it'll give, in this one, 7 to 8 vulnerabilities, showing the first 100. And a lot of these really, I don't know, in my experience, don't really give you much information. I mean, it's information, but I don't know if it's really, it's like maybe the first one on the MSN Messenger, yeah, that was turned off a long time ago on networks. Everything else in here, I don't know if it's really beneficial, but it's kind of neat to see it, I guess, and see what report they give you as an output. We talked about this a little bit. Honeypots is another way, and then honey nets. Honeypots is basically a computer that's opened up intentionally with vulnerabilities and contain a lot of bogus files like password files, confidential files, get a raise folder, whatever, SSN folder, stuff like that. Really in your face type of thing. The goal is to trick attackers into revealing their techniques, compare to the actual system, can determine security level against the attack. HoneyNet is a network set up with one or more honeypots. So, vulnerability scanning. We're going to look at some on Thursday and give you some to take home. We're not going to use all of them, but I'll give you some to play with here in the class. Basically, just automated software that searches for weaknesses on your network, security patches, passwords, ports that are open, things like that. Creates a report of those exposures along with usually what to do with it, like click on this link and download the update or whatever. Should be conducted on existing systems as new technology is deployed. And basically what this is referring to is the way we generally do it, and everywhere I've worked, is we have like a virtual area of our system to where we can test vulnerabilities. We can test new systems going to be integrated, new programs are going to be integrated, just to see what happens. If everything works great, you can take it out of that virtual environment, and it could be using actual VMware or whatever while you're doing it, and you're not going to mess anything up. It's usually performed behind a firewall within your security parameters. It doesn't interfere with other functions of your network. It's usually on another network that everybody else is not on, another database, whatever, a test area. You wouldn't want to do it in a live environment. Penetration testing basically is designed to exploit your system weakness. It relies on the tester's skills, or the tool of the tester's skills, the tool of the tester that they're using. Usually conducted by an independent contractor. Again, a lot of money in this one in town. MCE Engineers is one that makes a lot of money. On average, companies pay about $150,000 to come and do penetration testing over a 6-month period of time. Pretty good money, not bad. Tests usually conducted outside the security parameter, may even disrupt network operating on purpose. And the end result is a unbiased penetration testing report. Because the reason you want to do it outside is why you want to bring people outside to do something like that. Maybe. Everybody think of why? Are you going to be a little biased maybe of your network? A little bit maybe not as, do I? Yeah, exactly, right. And so you're not going to, you're not going to want to like say, You're not going to want to say how bad it is, maybe, sometimes, because it's your network and your company. But it's a good thing. It is. I've been through a number of them. It's always good. I'll tell you that when you have to go through one, it's a positive thing. Because again, they're going to see things you don't, and sometimes, and that not sometimes, that's always a good thing. Especially if you take that result of that report and fix stuff and make things better. That's the outcome anyway. So there's black box testing, where the tester has no prior knowledge of a network infrastructure. White box testing, where the tester has in-depth knowledge of a network and system being used. Gray box testing is some level of information has been provided to the tester. Example of black box testing is where the emails are sent to company employees and they have no clue what's going on. They just think it's an email from whomever. An example of one that was recently sent, I remember, was it had to do with people putting stuff in the refrigerator. It said if you have not brought stuff to if we now put cameras in the kitchen, and in order for you to put items now in the refrigerator, we need your network username and password, something like that, something stupid like that. And yeah, a lot of people put their username and password in there. It actually showed, it didn't show an image, it didn't show a video, it didn't show anything. It came from HR. It looked like it came from HR, but it didn't. And so that was one example. So the user had no knowledge whatsoever of the network infrastructure, totally black box testing. And I think that's a good thing. That's again, a positive thing. You can make it a positive thing anyway. So how often should this be done? Well, on frequency, a vulnerability scan when new equipment's added, at least once per month and thereafter. And then penetration testing once a year at least. Hire some people to come in, outside firm, to look at. You can do your own penetration testing. We do all the time. But it's always good to do an outside, because they're going to find things you don't find all the time. It's going to happen. Goals for vulnerability scanning is to reveal known vulnerabilities that have not been addressed. And again, it can be just you're busy and you don't see them. You just don't see the vulnerabilities. It's just human nature, right? Penetration testing discovers those exposures to normal business processes. Another feature is a tester. Could be an in-house technician of the vulnerability scan, penetration testing outside. Disruption, passive evaluation with no disruption. Penetration testing, an active attack that does disrupt process on purpose. Tools, automated for vulnerability scan. Penetration testing should have some hacker skills or something like that to be able to go in and see what they can do, right? See what they can get in. See what they can play with. Cost is another one, fairly low if it's internal. And it can be high, up into the hundreds of thousands, depending on the size of the company and the length of the process. Report, comprehensive of current vulnerabilities compared to baseline. And then penetration testing and short analysis of how the attack was successful and damage to the data. Value, can detect weaknesses in hardware and software. And penetration testing can preventative to reduce exposure to business. So again, all that stuff's good. And a lot of companies won't do that or don't, even though, let's say they don't do the outside thing. It's at least good to do the inside one if you don't spend money to do that. At least do something, I think, is better than nothing. Mitigating deterring attacks is create some type of technique for mitigating attacks, like some type of security baseline. Configuring controls on your network all the time, because things happen, people leave, come in, go. Hardening your network, like hardening the ports on the wall by locking them, your USB, your Ethernet ports, locking on your Wi-Fi, your doors, making sure they're locked and proximity carded, and maybe security like this room with alarms or something. And then reporting on a monthly basis or weekly basis of of things that are red flags type of things. An example, a lot of managers will want to know where their employees go, what kind of web activity they have. Well, when you get hired in any place, and some people don't like this, but when you get hired in any place, you usually sign some disclaimer, right, saying anything you do while you're here can be monitored. Just the way it is. It's not your computer, it's not your email, it's not your internet, okay? You're working there, so it's not an invasion of your privacy, basically, because you are working, it's a job. And so a report of activity, of web activity, they even have reports of, okay, say you're supposed to work on some application all day, like Excel or Word. They have software that actually can tell. You can have it open, right, and it's not going to be active. You have to actually be typing or doing something in it for it to be active. So it can give you an active count of how many hours you are on that software. Now, are there other softwares that can fake that out? Definitely. If the employee's smart enough, they can figure that out. Like just some software that moves a mouse or something all day. I don't know. types a key in there or something or whatever. I don't know. I'm sure there's other ways around it if they figured it out. Security posture can describe strategies like initial baseline of a checklist of, like, say, okay, we're going to say we want to be 90% updated at all times with antivirus. 90%. We'll say 90%. We'll just pick that number. And we have to have security updates once a month. Microsoft security updates once a month. And we have to test it against a test environment. Okay, that's a baseline. Everybody's password has to be changed every 60 days, whatever. So you just have some baseline you start creating, right? And anytime you have a baseline security, it does impede on convenience, okay? Anytime you have anything secure, doesn't matter what it is, like unlocking your door when you go home tonight or unlocking your car when you go out to the parking lot tonight. Is it inconvenient? Yes, but it's more secure than just keeping it open. Now, when I was brought up, we never locked our doors at our house growing up, never, literally never. I don't even remember once doing it. In fact, a lot of times the doors are open, just wide open all summer. But you can't do that anymore. And even in Podunkville, you can't do that anymore. You gotta lock everything because people steal stuff all the time. I'm not saying there's some communities that are like that, but you know what I'm saying. It's not that way anymore. So you have to lock stuff. Same thing with passwords. People don't like, including myself, I don't like changing passwords any more than anybody else. Just because a person works in IT or been in IT for a long time doesn't mean you like a rule, but it is more secure. Like an example, like's not a good word, but I do believe two-factor security is a really good way to keep your password secure. And if you have the ability to do two-factor with anything, I suggest you use it. What that means is when you log into any web browser or whatever, it usually has an app. Like Google has a lot of two-factor implemented, a lot of softwares and stuff. And you have to open up your phone and it pops up a little dialogue that says, did you just log into this device? Yes. You tap it and say yes. You used to have to enter a code. Now you just have to, it's literally tied to your device, your unique device, and it just pops up yes or no. You have to tap it, yes, that's all you gotta do. Now, is that inconvenient at times? Yeah, it's inconvenient at times, yeah. But it's better than being open, it's better than being open for hackers because they don't have my device. It's less likely my account could be hacked now because it's two-factor. So anything that's more secure is going to be less convenient. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't have some type of security baseline. And these have to be, approved by, CEOs and CFOs and people like that. And you have to sell the reason why it's important because they will hear slack too. They will hear complaints, definitely. So you have to be, I guess, there's a kind of a tightrope kind of thing. I've worked at places to where we focus a lot on education, what secure communication is, like not giving your password out, what a secure password is. And in those environments, we didn't have them change their password that often because people knew better, They were just educated better. But I've worked in places to where it wasn't that way, and they forced, because there's so much turnover, they forced like the password to be changed every 60 days or something, every 30 days or whatever. So it just depends on the environment that you work in. Continuous security monitoring, regularly observe systems and networks. Like in here, we have we have proximity doors. Batteries can die. Alarms. When I came in tonight, this alarm went wacko, and they had to come in and reset that. So stuff happens. You periodically check stuff, make sure things are working. Remediation. This is basically as vulnerabilities are exposed, put plans into place to address them. Okay, like for instance, it might be education. It might be teaching everybody what a secure password is, teaching everybody what to share, not to share, what to click, what not to click on, stuff like that. Controls, configuring controls, from everything from cameras to doors to people, security guards, whatever, information security, on detecting proximity, people coming towards the door, alarms, when people open the door without setting an alarm, things like that. Detecting sound, movement, whatever. Like in the corner of the room there, we have a infrared detector that when everybody leaves and I lock the door, I have to be still for just a second before I can set the alarm. Otherwise, it won't let me set it. So stuff like that. But again, they have to be checked. It's stuff, the lights go out, or the sensors go out, or the wires go bad, or whatever. Just like technology, it's going to need maintenance, basically. Additional consideration is when normal function interrupts by failure, which is higher priority, security or safety. Okay. And again, safety in my mind, safety to individuals is definitely prominent over security. As far as a person, their safety, that's not a question at all. But when it comes to data, person's data, security, in my mind, takes precedence over that. And then you determine whether data or a person or data is two different things, right? A person's much more important to me than data, right? Even though data is important, but if I was going to rate it, it would be data's here, person's here. It should be the other way around, I would hope. But fail open unlock doors, automatically open upon failure. Fail safe lock automatically locks. Firewall can be configured to have fail safe to be fail open safe. An example would be like a proximity card. If you swipe it too many times, it locks you out for 10 minutes. Whatever. A lot of systems do that. You put in your password 3 times wrong, locks you out for 10 minutes. Whatever. Right? Those are all fail-safe things. They generally will come up back, but again, safety is important. Somebody's trying to break in your door with a bad badge or whatever. It could deter them from going any further. Well, I guess I'll wait 10 minutes to do it again, see if I can try it. They'll probably just leave. It doesn't work the first time. And then hardening, you might have heard that as basically where you just take any system, regardless of what it is, and make it more secure. It could be passwords, disabling unnecessary accounts. Like an example would be a guest account. You don't need a guest account open on a network server, on a client. You disable that. Services like Messenger was one years ago that still is disabled because nobody uses it. But maybe other services. Anybody think of a service you might disable on a computer, that you can think of?
Browser.
Maybe a browser, yeah. Maybe there's no need for a browser.
We tried to disable Microsoft Edge on my work.
Okay.
It's so embedded into Windows 10 that it still interrupts PDF viewing sometimes.
Because it's the default to use that browser. Yeah. Protecting management interfaces and applications. So a lot of different ways to harden a system, harden a room, a building, whatever. And then reporting, providing information on when alarms go off, alerts go off. Like in Microsoft, you might never have looked at it, but we'll look at it Thursday. There's a log created in Windows since the creation of Windows, and it's in all operating systems, where you can look at the times in that system, since it's been alive anyway, and been created, that system, where failures of login has occurred, okay? And very rarely do normal people look at that because they're like, don't care, right? But in IT, sometimes you need to look at it, especially if there's some anomalies on somebody's computer. They say they come in and, I don't know, they're noticing files are moved around, or desktop items are moved around or deleted, just some weird stuff. Then you can go in and check logs for stuff like that. But there's also reporting mechanisms that'll let you do it remotely. So you can do that remotely from any computer in the network if you're an admin. It'll tell you how many, okay, this computer that's having problems, every night at 6 o'clock somebody failed to log in the first 2 or 3 days of the week. And then the last 2 days they were able to get in, and that person was like, well, I'm done at 5. So we come to find out is a maintenance person that tried to, just check their email or whatever. Probably harmless, I'm guessing. But again, they put the password under the keyboard or whatever and figured it out, or whatever the case may be. An alarm, like happened to me tonight. When I walked into the room, I tried to put my code in. Well, didn't work, and it beeped, and I tried to reset it, still didn't work. So I had to call security to remotely reset it, and then they were able to set it again. Reporting can be provided information on trends, can indicate serious impending situation. Like an example, multiple user accounts experiencing multiple password attempts. Okay, so something in the system is trying passwords all the time. That's not good. All right, at different weird times of the day or whatever the case may be. And I've seen that occur in different situations. Like here on campus years ago, a student, when USBs were real big, they brought a USB to the lab downstairs and plugged it in to get a document off of it or something. Well, it installed a really nasty malware virus on the network. And it took them at least, took IT at least a week to clean it up, I think, to finally clean it up. And from that incident, they put in, anytime somebody plugged in a USB drive in a system, it would scan it, basically, and they didn't have that feature turned on. It was a feature in the software already, they just didn't have it turned on. So now they turned it on, now it would scan that USB drive before it would connect, type of thing. Now, could people still cancel out of that scan? Yes, they could. Again, that's a vulnerability, but at least it's better than nothing. Port scanners, we talked about protocol scanners, honeypots, and also assessment tools. So that is the discussion. On Thursday, I want to go and talk